Hi, everyone, and welcome to our closing keynote here at ASPM Nation. I'm your host, Amir Kazemi, Director of Product Marketing here at SciCode, and I'm super excited to welcome Roland Cloutier to the stage. Roland is a globally recognized tech and security leader with so much experience in global protection and the security of critical infrastructure at some of the largest companies in the world, including EMC, ADP, and TikTok. Roland's most recent role as Global Chief Security Officer at TikTok, he was responsible for cyber, information protection, data defense, operational risk, and a lot more. I can't think of a better qualified person to discuss the future of AppSec through the lens of a CISO and really help us unpack why ASPM is a CEO level solution. So Roland, welcome and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Amira, thanks for having me.
Um, so to give our audience some context here, Roland, you've protected some of the most complex code bases and environments in the world in your role as a CISO at TikTok, ADP, and EMC. What have you learned about how to innovate and develop applications at speed without having to compromise on security?
Well, Amir, I think the first thing I would say probably is context is king. I mean, what you have to think about what we are coding for. I mean, it's the totality of our business environments today. What environments are we operating in? And, what is the actual technology going to be used for, either for, running your organization, go-to-market application, so many different possibilities. And we have to think about the context of jurisdictional issues across the globe and how it's going to be used. So the more context, the better to align to policy and how to enforce that. And really, to accelerate speed, you want to be able to reduce that threat service, that manageability service, to whatever is necessary for what you're doing. So also we have to think about the risks to the totality of the technical environment we're operating in. It's so broad, and it's since code, is part of not just a product or an application. It's the infrastructure of your business. You really have to understand that visibility that you have into your production environments, into the life cycle. And this is beyond shifting left. This is the visibility across the entire organization. That's why visibility is so important, which I think we can jump into a little bit later. But I think also the other issue to make it work is you got to get in-process execution. So as things are being built or developed, right, you can't let things go for a long time, then come back to an organization and say, oh, you have a problem. You have a security issue, you have a quality issue, you have a vulnerability. You're wasting time and money on the go-to-market. And it's not just about the costs associated with the issues that you have with your coding organizations, your dev organizations. The other problematic issues you have on time to market. I mean, we used to release products, every month, every 6 months, and now we're doing it hundreds of times a day. And it is all about your go-to-market capability. So, I say context is king, and understanding the code, what it's being used for, and being closer at time of execution.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And, context is king really resonates with me because I'm sure throughout your experience, a lot of, things have changed between those experiences as well. So the amount of times that you're shipping per day, per quarter, per month has also been different across those different companies that you've also been involved with as well. So really interesting. Um, so obviously ASPM has been a hot topic lately. So from your global CISO lens, how would you define the role of an ASPM and what does it mean to be a complete ASPM?
So let's start with the platform side, just the PM side, right? Which is so critically important. We see in many parts of our industry and our practitionership the use of platforms to ensure the integrity of the operations and access to the information we need to execute our mission sets. And that's why platforms are so important. It's not just about having a cool tool with some great AI behind it to show us some things that we couldn't see before. it's about totally integrating into the fabric of the organization. In this case, is from an ASPM perspective, it's about seeing all of your pipelines, all of your repos, all of your coding environments, what they're being used for, and being able to apply very specific capabilities, rule sets, visibility, reporting, understanding across all of those. Like if you have a tool and it's focused on one specific technology, the problem is you're not seeing the other 92% of your operation. You're only seeing 8%, or maybe it's 50% because it's the largest area. But unless you have a ASPM capability that is deeply embedded into the code ecosystem within your environment, from dev to management to production, and all of the other attributes associated with that. So a lot of people think of ASPM as just code and code assurance, SDLC, pipeline defense, things of that nature. But I see ASPM as the ability to add contextually the environment you're operating in, the issues associated with your business, your environment, your code, the quality issues, and integrating directly back into your partners that you're providing the service for, in either your IT organizations, your dev organizations, your CTO organization, or your product organizations. It's critically important. ASPM has become the fabric by which you integrate and operate a total technology and digital business. And I think when I think total ASPM, I think about that visibility and transparency across tools that may not even be part of the ASPM tool set, right? That they have to be able to understand and integrate into that ecosystem. But it's even better if they can provide the tool sets themselves too. So that's a kind of a high level view.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Um, so one of the things is that number one priority today for CEOs, according to McKinsey, is this thing called business resiliency. And what we've been hearing a lot is this concept around cyber resiliency. Do you think cyber resiliency is the same as business resiliency? And do you think that complete ASPM that you were talking about earlier was, can really help CEOs, CISOs, and really the exec team have better alignment with cyber resiliency? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Mayor, the funny thing is I haven't been calling, what we do in cybersecurity or information assurance or whatever the terms we've been using. I haven't been using that for a long time. I've been calling it business operations protection. So I truly believe the cyber resiliency is a direct and major component of business resiliency, because the reality is in the entire value chain of your organization, is built on code and technology. And I don't care if you're a pizza shop in the middle of New York that does your ordering online, or you're a major multinational social media mega company. Your business runs on technology and code. So yeah, business resiliency is a great term, and they are focused on it. And they're focused on it for many, many reasons. There's the issues associated with actually being able to operate your business and it being up and being able to drive revenue. It's association with brand. It's association with regulatory context and things that CEOs have to worry about in ensuring that they can legally operate in different jurisdictions across the globe, and that they don't go astray of the industry regulators or government regulators that are there. And they have shareholders and customers, right, that expect quality, secure code that's available all the time for them to operate on their technology or platform or whatever service or good they're delivering. So it is top of mind. And every CEO I talk to has the same discussion. How do I get my arms wrapped around this? What are the priorities? How should I be looking at, what are the things I need to look at? Because CEOs have 1,000 different things they have to look at every single day. And, when they start prioritizing things like, my business has to run and it has to do with technology, we have to be able to provide them that level of experience, insight into their business and technology in a way that makes sense for them. And that's just one of the things that is so important about ASPM.
Yep, absolutely. Well, one of the philosophies that we have here at SciCode is that AppSec or even developer security is more of a team sport, right? So you're gaining all that visibility on the security side, but you're also giving developers more of a self-serve way to remediate those critical issues in their own environments. Speaking of developers, I'm actually curious, when they're responsible for all these cybersecurity issues or these vulnerabilities, uh, they're not necessarily incentivized to do that, right? So, in your experience, how have you come across this hurdle, and how can we fix this incentive system to get developers to work closer with security teams?
Okay, so I'm not going to get on my soapbox on this one because I think we put so much pressure on is it someone's responsibility or so and so's responsibility that do is it what the developers should be doing or security should be doing? It's what our businesses should be doing at the end of the day. And we have to stop thinking about code security, application security, pipeline security as an independent concept away from quality. We've been measuring quality in our businesses and products since the 60s in very advanced, productive ways. Yet we still can't seem to really understand that when it comes to code. I think the direct answer that you're asking is how do we help them? And so how do
Yeah,
we help them is we give them tools at time of coding. We give them relevant information and their leadership about the totality of the issues they are having and why. So for instance, I'm a big fan of dashboards and scorecards in the space of the security component of quality because it drives insights like maybe you have 200 different products across 50 repos and you're going to and it's hard to look at who's doing it right, who's doing it wrong. But when you roll that up into a view that you can provide to a technology development or product development executive and say, here's where your quality issues are with regards to security across which products and what type of code base. And here are the teams that are specifically having issues that you need to help. That's a lot better than saying, you suck, here's some risk issues, and I need you to remediate them by tomorrow because they're high and critical. No, provide them with business insight into the business of technology. That's what we need to do for the executive core. And by the way,
yeah,
compensate them based on the quality of their code. And we need to give tools at the time of coding to our developers to ensure that they're educated, understanding, and that we can enforce policy when they're actually doing their work, not 2 weeks later.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the compensation piece is definitely important. Have you also noticed incentives around, or even like processes around gamification as well through your experience? Has that been introduced with developers?
I think gamification has,
Yeah,
and where we've picked up on gamification that's really worked is the integration on the educational component. So, meaning that you want them to understand within that quality phrase the critical security areas, and whether it's OWASP top 20 or it's just very specific coding traits or how to use certain things. You know, giving them a system by which they can compete internally with other developers, reward programs, being able to promote some of the things they done, help them drive their career development through IP development that they may have done, like doing those sort of things from a gamification and integration into a broader context for them, and celebrating them. This is about people
yeah,
doing a good job, not just doing security well. It's about them doing their job well. And I think if
yeah,
you can get an entire development organization pumped about how you're interested in their success beyond the product, that they're more engaged, they're more apt to learn and drive that and educate others within their sphere.
yep, yep, absolutely. Um, from your experience, from an executive lens, going back on the security side, what kind of keeps up the CISOs and CEOs up at night from a security perspective? And then do you feel that they feel confident in what the developers are doing on the dev side? What's kind of that perception, I would say?
Yeah, well, I mean, our CISOs don't sleep, so
Yeah,
I don't think that's a fair question for them. But no, I think there's different things for CISOs and CEOs. Let's start with CEOs. I think that's the most important. Um, First of all, they want to know that their management team uh, is capable of addressing these issues. Right? There's a lot of known unknowns out there, and they want to know that their leadership and their executive team is working within their business to understand those, and be able to get ahead of those. I think they're critically worried about the regulatory implications of what could be happening. We've seen in the United States a change with the SEC. We've seen in different environments around the world, from being able to operate with certain types of data like consumer data and things of that nature, that organizations have to follow, strict rules. And what is it, 31 new laws around consumer data, data defense, and privacy defense in the last 18 months. The CEOs worry about that. Are we going to screw that up? And then, of course, they are. I mean, they read the news. They see what happens in code. They see what happens when their code isn't secure and it goes out to all their clients. They see when they're in critical, if they're in critical infrastructure operations, what can happen to a country or national economy if they screw up. I mean, they see these things, and they're worried about it, each in their own space, in their own industry. And so I think, although they're worried about it, they prioritize it appropriately, and they continue to drive at the concept of transparency, better business information for decision support. Now, the CISOs, I'll tell you what CISOs are worried about. What don't I know about? What environment did I not see? What repo is out there that's servicing a big part of our code base, that I don't understand, or have tools or technologies, or no one really understands the risks associated with it. It's the what don't I know about. Sure, we're worried about the actors that are going to come after our company to be able to do certain things, but I think one of the biggest things typically is the I don't know what I don't know. So that total environmental effect. And our CISOs, confident that their developers are what their developers are doing. I say that's split, and every company is a little bit different. I think the majority of CISOs are not confident they have 100% capability, transparency, and effective enforcement across all of their pipelines. Just is what it is. Unless you're a large organization that has an ASPM-like capability, or have attempted to build it yourself because of the complexity or the criticality, I think you run into these issues, or I can't stop all code, I can't check all code all the time. I'm not there at the time of the developers doing the work. What do I do? So I think there's probably a higher percentage that are not as confident as we should be in this realm.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, visibility is a big proponent of that confidence. So, what level of visibility do you think that these CISOs or these executives need into from a security lens? And how do we get to that visibility to provide them the peace of mind that they're looking for?
Well, first of all, it has to be 100%. Like, I know security is not 100%. No, you need 100% visibility. Let me tell you a story. It's in the top 5 most important lessons I learned in a boardroom as a chief security officer. There was a very young CTO from another company that was absolutely brilliant, that had joined our board. And I'm talking like early 30s, I think he was, for this very large multinational. And I was giving an update on some critical issues, and how we were transforming what we were doing in this space. And he goes, "But Roland, how do you know?" And I said, "Excuse me?" He goes, how do you know that you have the visibility you need, and that it's not going out here, it's not leaking here, it's not an organization that you acquired 5 years ago isn't doing this? How do you know? And it panic. It was like panic in my thoughts. And from that time on, I've always asked my teams that, how do we know? Show me, take me through it. We're using external insight, internal insight, so on and so forth. So the story is to say that you need 100% visibility, and you have to be assured. And the only way to do that is have products like yours do things like integrate into the ecosystem, be able to collect and analyze data across multiple technology types, and not just code assurance. I need to look at vulnerability systems. I need to look at CMDBs. I need to look at application assets. I need to look at a lot of different things to create an understanding of the totality of my environment that I'm defending and that I'm trying to enforce at that code level to make good decisions. It's not just about tech defense. It's about environmental visibility and business visibility.
Yep, absolutely. And, not all ASPMs are essentially created equally. In your opinion, what's the importance of scanning quality for ASPM platforms that have those native scanning solutions from code to cloud? Do you think that affects both the coverage, the visibility, but also the kind of productivity tax on these teams from a security and a developer perspective?
Yeah, Mary, you just hit it. I mean, I think there are opinions out there that say, well, as long as you're scanning, you're scanning. Yeah, but I'd rather get a scan with a 99.2% um, uh, positive or non false positive rate, and with 3 findings rather than 6,000 findings that I have to apply 6 people to go through to be able to get the right things back to people. So all scanners are not created equals, from my opinion. So to answer your question directly, the quality of the scanner is super important. The fact that it can understand what it's scanning, why it's scanning it, and it's after the scan occurs and being able to put that within context of the total ecosystem. So it's not just about the scanner, it's about the capabilities of the scanner on the specific technology, how deep it can go, and then how it goes back into the totality of a platform to inform and utilize that data to give back to the organization to save time, save money, and help me integrate with things like my risk infrastructure, right? Like I can't then go take a list, go through 6 million issues we found, and then push it over to a GRC. Like, what's a GRC going to do with that? And then someone has to figure out on that team to push it back, into my code management platform. It's craziness. That needs to all come together, and it starts with a good, solid code scanning capability.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, One of the questions I had was around like back to your seat in the CISO, um, uh, at the CISO level. When you're speaking to the board, how do you provide them the assurance that, we're running a cyber resilient organization? So how does that relationship kind of get managed from your perspective in your seat as a CISO?
There's 3 or 4 different ways, but I'll start with the transparency. You've got to give them, and I know I'm overusing that word, but you have to give them insight into what that looks like for the business. Because contextually, if you're a business person, you're a CFO from another company, you've been a CEO in a totally different industry, like they don't understand what that means. So, right, giving them this is the view of our business as it relates to our digital ecosystem and how we provide that resiliency at what layer. So that's first, is being able to explain it in English and non-tech terms. I think the second area is to prove the how do you know, right? So what are the systems, programs, platforms, capabilities, technologies, and processes that we've implemented across the totality of the business across the globe to ensure we do know? And what is the probability, or what are the gap areas? Like, you are not going to get everything 100% right. So being transparent about what you're not and what you are doing about it, I think is also important. And the third part is show the flaws and our ability to respond to those flaws, right? Technology is a living, breathing, moving thing. It just doesn't have a heartbeat, right? Like, but it changes every day. It moves with the way the technology works, and when external things occur, it changes our perspectives internally. And so showing that you have the capability to understand that, reapply views, go back and understand your environment when things go wrong in adjacencies or other companies or competitors, and say, do we have that problem? Have we had that problem? Could we have that problem? And explain to them that you have a resilience view across the totality of your digital landscape, I think is critically important. That's how you drive confidence into the board. But in order to do that, you have to have that total capability.
Do you wish you had an ASPM back when you were in those positions when you were speaking with the board?
I would have spent so much less of our shareholders' dollars, back in those days. We had to create, like, independent capabilities across all of these operating units to be able to pull that information in just to create a scorecard. I think one of the most important things we've ever done, is be able to show the entire senior leadership of the organization, here's what you look like from a grade perspective across each of your areas. Right. This is how you look to the industry, and this is how you compare against what we've committed to our customers as our level of security and quality, and just doing that was a massive collection of informational assets to be able to do that. And by the way, and you weren't getting 100% because you didn't have access to all the information across the globe in some contexts. And now ASPM like platforms are giving us that capability to do it, and do it, frankly, almost overnight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wanted to dig in a little bit on the human side here, Roland. So, obviously you've been at your level, high stakes position under your purview. For the audience listening in, how do you deal with that level of stress on a daily basis and kind of bring your stress back to an equilibrium? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I always compare the CISO job. Like, take a picture of a CISO when she or he, got into the seat, and show it 5 years later, like you do it like a president. It is kind of funny. I always joke I'm only 29 and I look like this. It is a high stress job. I mean, first of all, you got to want to do it. You got to be in the mission mindset. This isn't a 9 to 5. I come from a law enforcement and military and critical operations background, so I thrive on this stuff. I love dealing with major critical issues, so it's a part of our makeup. But there are some critical points that I teach young CISOs all the time. That they've got to have a segmentation. They've got to have a hobby. If they have a family, they have to spend time with that family. If you have vacation,
Yeah.
use your vacation. It's part of your pay. Just because you get paid well for what you do, that's great. But you actually got to use your vacation because it's there so you don't die at 40, right? I think another really important thing, and doesn't always hit with all audiences, but I'll just be frank, is that you got to keep yourself healthy. The physicality associated with the mental stress cannot be detached. Having good physical conditioning, the ability to have good physical strength is right up there with how you get to mental strength. And we sit behind desks a lot. We're always on an airplane, and so it's hard to do. You have to prioritize taking care of yourself, or that mental stress will creep up, further than you would expect. So.
Yeah, no, great words of wisdom right there. One more question. In terms of AppSec, what do you think the future holds for us here? What's your opinion on that?
Oh, it is such a bright future now. Finally, that we have ASPM capabilities in product that are plugging into our entire digital ecosystems, not just delivering their one product or their scanner across. Like, they can consume, information, products like yours from across our entire infrastructure. It's crazy. Now, what's going to be awesome here, though, is the application of AI, right? Understanding external issues, internal issues, business issues, and applying that at the speed of AI, and being able to support through replication or immediate delivery of important code assets to a developer or development group. That's going to change over the next 3 to 5 years, right? Taking known good quality code, and how that works across your ecosystem and hand it to a developer is going to get us from the integrated human issue that we still have around coding to product development and delivery through AI assisted platforms. I think ASPM is going to change the way we think about developing code, and will significantly drive up our quality capabilities within product.
Amazing. Well, we're going to have to wrap up here, but Roland, amazing. Thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today. You've brought such an amazing perspective for us, and I'm sure the audience has learned so much from you. I'm going to hand it back over to Shauna, who's going to be sharing a summary of the highlights from the rest of today's session. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Amir. Appreciate it.